Our chalice lighting today is by Reverend Tom Goldsmith, which he used every single Sunday for over 30 years that he served our congregation in Salt Lake City, Utah, writing, symbol of light and of knowledge, symbol of warmth and of freedom. We light this chalice as an enduring sign of our faith. Here we gather to hope, to celebrate the infinite possibilities of love. Welcome all you brave and hardy souls who apparently are dug out enough in your places of rest to come to this place this morning. Welcome all of you, worshiping from the safety of your homes, all of us buffeted about by the winds of change that bring 20-degree weather this weekend and a projection of 60-degree weather next weekend. These are the times which we are given. We rejoice in each other's presence. If you are new or feeling new, or it is in fact your 40th year here among us, you are welcome in this place of diversity of belief, of broadness of heart, a place where we make room for one another. This morning, as we practice once each month, we call Spirit Sunday, a time when we worship all together across generations, sometimes in ways a little less talky and a bit more experiential. I'll invite you to roll with us. Those of you at home, consider ways you can adapt some of these rituals and practices to your place right there in front of the computer. This morning's service, here in this month where we celebrate and honor liberating love, invites us to consider the kinds of journeys that love sends us out on. The people we meet and come to know along the way in such journeys, and the community that we knit together, sometimes even when it's very hard, sometimes in spite of ourselves. When we sat down this month to plan worship for this Sunday and for this whole month, I found myself sharing with the staff team the ways in which I find love to be a fierce and a compelling power, something that isn't always comfortable, but is always true, stretching us in new ways on new journeys, sometimes with entirely new risks. In fact, I was so taken by that phrase, the fierce and compelling power of love, that we Googled it right then and there in the middle of the staff meeting. And when we Googled it, that phrase, the fierce and compelling power of love, we found on the other side of the internet, me, or a quote from me. I love that phrase, it turns out, because it is mine. When I wrote quite some years ago and had quite forgotten if God's name is love. Then God compels us to resist the fall to violence by pushing back with muscular resolve against all the structures that confine our capacity to care. A universalist God for a tragic era like the one we live in. It is not a gauzy hymn-singing force of personal devotion that draws us endlessly toward itself, but a fierce and a compelling power that grips us by the collar amid our own descent and calls us to choose the will to mutuality all over again, even when the choice is so risky that it could utterly remake us. That is the love we are storying ourselves into this month in our theme of liberating love. One so powerful and so compelling that it might make us new all over again. In that spirit, in this multi-generational time of worship, let us invite one another to share the journey. Our Chalice Lighters choir can come up. They'll be leading us as they so often do. This time in our hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me. The lyrics should be right here on the back wall. We're crushing it. Come on over, come on over. And any child, youth, person comfortable sitting on the floor who would like to come forward for a story, I want to invite you to do so. You do not have to be a member of the Chalice Lighters Choir to come up. Come on up. Hi, Hadley. Hi, Fiona. Hi, Abdisa. Thanks for lighting the chalice. Yeah. Abdisa says he's a professional river roader now. Yeah, that's right. Champ. So I gave some of you a preview of this story, and it starts with some questions. So do you ever feel like, and anybody can come or stay, you can keep a parent, whatever you need to do. Do you ever feel like love, or maybe just life, might ask you to be braver or harder working than you really want to be? Is that anything that ever occurs to you? Like, do you ever kind of want to pretend that whatever hard thing it is you're supposed to do doesn't even really exist? Like the great big pile of, I don't know, dirty dishes in your room that you're supposed to take down to the kitchen is not there?
Bok, bok.
It's just not there at all? that test you're a little afraid of at the end of the quarter, it's not going to happen, or that piano recital might not be real. Sometimes we like to think that the hardest things and the biggest and the bravest things aren't really there for us. And in our story, we're going to hear about a prophet, that means a great leader, named Moses, who kind of hoped that he had done all the hard parts of his life already. He kind of hoped that all the really gnarly stuff, all the stuff that felt like cleaning his room was done, and he could just go ahead and chill for the rest of his life. That was Moses' plan. Because you see, Moses, he grew up in a palace, in a big and beautiful palace. He grew up with the Pharaoh, who was the king of Egypt. And Moses was safe and warm inside that palace, but he knew that really his heritage, where he came from, his people, were all the people that didn't live in that palace and who were stuck doing all the work and all the hard stuff, all the labor of making all the rich people richer, right? And so Moses did a really hard thing. And this is hard to imagine. He was super rich. He was super comfy. He had a really great, grand bedroom. And you know what Moses did? He ran away. He ran away from the Pharaoh's palace, and he escaped to this place called Midian. And Moses had a plan. He figured that people were really complicated, and they did mean stuff to each other, and it was really kind of bad out there. And so Moses' plan was to be a shepherd and only hang out with sheep. Does that sound better than hanging out with people? What if it was only hang out with puppies or with ponies? Does that sound better? Yeah. So that was his plan. Imagine that I'm talking about pony or snakes, any sort of creature. He did not want to be involved in everybody's problems anymore, and so he ran away and he hid. But one day, as Moses was out tending his flock of sheep, ponies, snakes, whatever you would like to imagine, sea lions, Moses saw a strange sight right in front of him. It was a great big bush. I like to think of it as a shrubbery. A great big shrubbery. A shrubbery. And the shrubbery was on fire. Now, somebody tell me what would happen if a great big bush was on fire. Would it burn up? It would burn up. It would burn up and it would turn into ash and it would just, right? But the truly wild thing, yeah? It would probably turn into a wildfire, and it would be a part of climate change, and it would be disastrous, and it would be really scary. But do you know what happened in this case? And I'll get back to you. The bush was on fire, but it didn't ever really burn. It just stayed there, just that one bush, never consumed, never ash, never anything all that scary, just burning there. And it gets weirder. So from that bush, Moses heard a voice, and the voice said to Moses, "Moses, you are standing on holy ground. Take off your shoes." Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? And it got even weirder after that, because after Moses took off his shoes, which I sort of think meant stay a while and listen to what I have to say. Take off your shoes so you can't run away. The voice said, you can take off your shoes if you want, right in this moment. And the voice said to Moses, it said, "Now that you are stuck here, since I've gotten you to take off your shoes, listen to me. You have to go back to Egypt where you got free from, and you have to make sure everybody else gets free with you." And so poor Moses, sitting there with no shoes on, has just been told to go right back to the place he ran away from and to never, ever leave until he could take everybody else who needed to be free along with him. And so the story says that Moses put his shoes back on, and he walked all the way back to Egypt, and he spoke even when he was frightened to speak. Do you know that Moses had a stutter? And so when the Spirit of life and love told him to go back and lead all the people out of Egypt, he was really scared because he didn't want to stand up and talk in front of anybody. And that still was what love asked of him. And so he went back to the city. He put his shoes on, and he spoke true things out loud in scary times so that the people could find their way. Have you ever thought that what your life asked you to do was just too hard. Sometimes love asks us to do things that might be hard for us, but in the end, they bring us somewhere more hopeful and maybe even more powerful, where more people are free. Sometimes all we can do when love asks us to do hard things is to put our shoes back on and start the journey in the knowledge that we are never doing this journeying alone. And we are, in fact, going to be guided in this journey yet again by the Chalice Lighters Choir, who are singing our next song, Guide My Feet. So everybody who's a Chalice Lighter, head back to the microphones. Everybody who's not can head back to your seats with your shoes.
The microphone isn't on.
Can I take my shoes off to sing?
Shoes on.
The microphone isn't on.
Shoes on.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Yay me!
As we go along on this journey, we will have companions along the way. Some we'll click with right away and we'll love them right away so easily, and some we will have to learn to love. But even those we love will make us angry sometimes, or we'll disagree with them. So here is a story about two squirrels who started out as rivals on the journey. They discovered that coming together as friends was better for everyone. This is called The Squirrels Who Squabble.
The Squirrels Who Squabbled by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. In a towering forest where summer had been, the cool air bit fresh and the mosses grew green. And as autumn edged in and the sky raged red, the sleepiest creatures got ready for bed. While up in a tree swung a flighty young squirrel, who everyone knew as Spontaneous Cyril. Now most foresty folk had seen to their needs through the plentiful months of mushrooms and seeds. They'd built up their stores so they'd all be well fed through the frosting of winter that glittered ahead. But Cyril, he lived in the now and the here. He adventured and partied his way through the year. So his cupboard was empty, his hollow was bare. He hadn't a mouthful of food anywhere. But wait, what was that? Over there, take a look. A single lone pine cone wedged in a nook. He squealed with delight, and for very good reason. For inside were the very last nuts of the season. But Cyril wasn't alone. There were more hungry eyes. Yes, plan ahead Bruce had his sights on the prize. Though he'd gathered a mountain of bounty hard fought, Bruce was convinced he was one pine cone short. "I simply must have it," he wistfully cried, as he dreamt of the fresh, juicy pine nuts inside. So, as Cyril set off on his way to the ground, Bruce, he was also last pine cone bound. They sprinted and scurried with no time to gamble. They scratched at the bark in their scampering scramble. But their panic and haste shook the tips of the spruce, and the pine cone, it trembled, and then it came loose. Both squirrels gave chase at a lightning pace. This was the start of a wild, nutty race. "It's mine!" shouted Cyril.
"No, mine!" hollered Bruce. "You don't stand a chance. Give up. It's no use."
"I'm hungry!" cried Cyril. "This cone is not yours."
"Stay back!" shouted Bruce. "This cone's for my stores."
It boinged over bushes and flew through the air. It binged on the nose of a slumbering bear. It bounced over boulders, then came to a stop, then teetered and wobbled and quivered and plop. Both squirrels followed. Oh, the water was fast. Would they learn that they needed each other at last? But each was intent on how he could win, so they didn't quite notice a bird sweeping in. Cyril and Bruce, they watched in dismay as their cone disappeared up, up, and away. "Come back!" shouted Cyril.
"There are nuts!"
exclaimed Bruce. But all hope was gone. It was simply no use. And meanwhile they drifted right up to the ledge. Greed, it was driving them over the edge. Cyril and Bruce, they had taken a fall. They were paying the price for wanting it all. They'd squandered their chances to team up and share. Would their nutty young hopes simply end in despair? Bruised and bedraggled, they swept past dry land. Cyril grabbed at a branch with a trembling hand. Catching Bruce with the other, he heaved and he huffed and dragged him to safety with panting and puffs. They stared at the sky, quite lost in deep thought, until Bruce looked at Cyril and let out a snort.
"Oh, how silly we are," he proclaimed, all a jiggle. "How greedy I've been," spluttered Bruce with a giggle. "We shall change from today. May the squabbling cease. We should celebrate, seeing we're both in one piece."
From that day and forward, they made a great pair. They would gather together and found they could share. Yes, Cyril and Bruce, they knew in the end, the best thing to share is a laugh with your friend.
Bruce and Cyril had quite a journey together, from being rivals fighting for resources to becoming friends who value each other's company and laughter. I hope none of us has fallen over a literal waterfall, but it certainly can feel that way sometimes. I think we all can relate to the experience of going on a big and sometimes frightening journey. Whether we're trying to meet the needs of family or rallying for a cause or fighting traffic on the Beltway, we go through small and big journeys every day. And a lot of time, other people are involved. Rivals, friends, family, strangers. It's a very natural impulse to become angry or frustrated with the people we might perceive as standing in our way or slowing us down, because considering other people usually does take more time. But as we know that moving forward with love and kindness will ultimately make us feel better, even when it might upend our plans. When we allow ourselves to be compelled and inspired by love, we strengthen our community. To illustrate what this means, we have an activity to share. As you are willing and able, we invite you to take a length of ribbon on one of the tables. There's one on the side and one in the back. And you can use a marker to write on the ribbon A word or two that represents what love compels or inspires you to bring to this congregation as we journey together. It might be commitment or curiosity, spontaneity like Cyril, or planning ahead like Bruce. Once you're done, you can pass your ribbon to one of our weavers, and the gifts that love compels us to offer here will be woven together to represent the fabric of our community. So again, there are 2 tables, one at the back and one at the side. You can get up and do that whenever you'd like. Again, the prompt is, what do you want to offer this congregation as we journey together? Just a word or two.
As we continue our weaving, a blessing from the Reverend Barbara Pescan. In this new or familiar place, listen to the sounds of breathing, the creaking chairs, the shuffling feet, the whispered words, the sighing all around, the burst of laughter. Know that each breath, each movement, the glance meant for you or intercepted holds a whole life within it. This quiet chorus is the usness of it all. In the very real sense, the sermon we write for one another, the collective sound of our being together, these are the signs that we choose each other, that we choose to be in company, even when that company asks bold things of us. These are the signs that we have things to say, things not yet said, but in each other's presence, still trembling behind our heart's doors, those doors closed but never locked, each silent thing waiting on the threshold between unknowing and knowing, between being hidden and being known. Find the rumbling, almost silence among these people and listen to it all. The breathing, the movement, the holding back. Hear the tears that have not yet reached their eyes. Perhaps they are your own. Hear also the laughter building deep where joy abides, despite it all. Listen. Rejoice. And in this almost silence, say amen. In my family of 4, we have a family slogan, mostly deployed or employed, truth be told, when it is time for piano practice or math homework. The motto in my family goes like this, a call and response most often, the lads, people who try. People who try, which isn't to say we are people who get it right, or who know how to do the math homework, or who can play Bach on the piano, but the lads are people who try and keep trying over and over again, in spite and because of ourselves. In this place, I believe we are river roaders, people who give to the best of our ability, not even mostly or primarily of our financial resources, though that too, but of our time and our enduring hope, our presence with and for one another, because that presence with and for one another inspires a certain kind of presence in this hurting world. River roaders, people who give in 1,000 different ways. And so in this time of offering, while all the regular things happen, baskets going around, the website is there, the text to give, the box in the back that goes away and comes back every Sunday morning, I invite you also to consider how, not just in this place, but in the world, you are called to give to those who share the journey with you, even and especially when that journey leads over rocky and uncertain terrain.
So what? That's the question we ask at the end of every Wellspring class. Participants have done homework and self-reflection. Then they share their ideas with each other during the class. And at the end, we ask, so what? What is it that you would like to take into the world from what we've done here? How might your life be different? One of the current Wellspring groups, called Faith in Action, asked that question and together decided to work on a food drive for To Be Well Fed, which River Roaders, in that River Roaders give mode, gave so much food. I don't even know how much. It was a lot, right? Yeah. They rose to the occasion. So I figured it was a good question to ask at the end of our worship service as well. You've just had a worship experience. You heard some ideas, you sang some hymns, you wrote on ribbons that are being beautifully woven together. You'll have to take a look afterwards. So what? What will you take into the world? How will you bring your love into the world? Continue to ponder this as we sing our closing hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Please rise as you are willing and able.
Can be seated. What we do in community is an example of how we weave community in the world. And of course, none of us do it together. Today, I want to particularly thank Ari and Heather, who are quite literally our weavers. Could you hold up the weaving we have so far, Ari and Heather? How gorgeous. Of course, our religious educators, Beth and Laura, and the whole dang team in our religious education life, which, by the way, if you'd like to teach, guide, coach, be a friend and a fan of these kids, there is still opportunity, and our chalice lighters. Any chalice lighters in here? Stand up. Who are aces. Kailana, amazing. You're amazing. For all of us who bring community life together, we do it not in order to be the center of attention, but in order to expand the center of one another's attention, to hold more of us more often all the time. To that end, I want to offer some gratitude to everybody who participated in our food drive with To Be Well Fed. I know the crew was here unpacking it all yesterday. Thank you. Also, if you feel like this band of strange and wonderful people is a band of people you would like to journey forward with, we have our membership book open today. Right over there, you can join me after the service. And you can check out new art up in the fellowship hall. Photographs from Suzanne McIntyre are not only on view, but for sale. They support the artist and the congregation, and they're really, really cool, so I hope you'll go look. Then at noon today, We're starting a brand new series of classes exploring our history called Where Do We Come From? A History. We'll start today looking at the story of Unitarianism itself. You can meet Beth, who's right there, in room 31, or you can track her down after the service to ask for details. Tonight is our monthly game night and potluck dinner, so join us anytime between 5 and 9 p.m. You see, the Sunday service is just a tiny little part of the expansiveness of how we live community together. And next Saturday, January 27th, we're doing it all. So just like clear your calendar. At River Road from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., our Educating for Change Pathway to Racial Justice is hosting a film screening and a discussion of Neshoba, The Price of Freedom, a searing and important documentary about the civil rights movement and that fight for freedom that asks so much of so many. We also want to let you know that we'll be having food there, so if you're joining us, please go ahead and register by the end of today so we can make sure we have enough for everyone. The civil rights pilgrimage that many of our leaders from River Road undertook last fall inspired bringing this film and the discussion back to it, and we really hope you'll join us. Also, from 4 to 5 p.m., that's Saturday the 27th, choir member Kevin Krug is hosting a 70s sing-along in the fellowship hall, which, like, who doesn't want to do that? It's going to be fabulous. And at 6:30 p.m., Tret Fury will be here to perform from her new album, Lavender Moonshine. Tret is an iconic LGBT troubadour and advocate over the span of so many years. She has brought love and beauty and joy and truth-telling. It will be an absolute honor to host her. We hope you'll join us. That's 6:30 that evening, and Tret will, in fact, join us for the service next Sunday. So please come. It's going to be great. I think that's all the announcements. I'm sure you will correct me if I forgot one. And in the midst of it all, as we prepare in the simple and most complex ways to take this light we have kindled out into the waiting world, may you go then to be who you already are. You are the beloved and precious children of everything that is sacred in this world and a great many things beyond it. In that spirit, the joy and the justice, the goodness and mercy, the power and possibility of this world are at loose in you. So go then to be who you already are, and may you be abundantly blessed. Amen.